Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Twitter and the Carving It Up and YouTube, Carving It Up and the Grid YouTube channel. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. Much earlier show on tap today. It's 3 Eastern, noon Pacific time just now. Little, crazy stuff, happening with my schedule and stuff like that. So tomorrow's show is going to be a different time as well. Just want to let you guys know that ahead of time. It's not going to be at 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific. I'll let you know ahead of time on social media when it'll be. But we do have a packed show on tap for you guys tonight. We're covering all the sports, okay? We're talking about something I did not think I'd be discussing, in early April. But I'm going to be talking about the First Lady of the United States, who really put her foot in her mouth when it comes to how she talked about the LSU Tigers and the Iowa Hawkeyes, who played that national title game on Sunday in the women's bracket. And she invited both teams to the White House. I'll get into the biggest issue with what she said later in the show, as well as the Clippers-Lakers huge game last night at the Crypto.com Arena. The winner would get the 5 seed as of right now, of course, and the loser would go to the 7 seed, which is the first team in the play-in tournament as we sit here today with 2 games to go. And the Clippers obviously won that one pretty convincingly. I'll get into that later in the show as well. Why I'm really not that concerned about the Lakers despite the loss. Pretty substantial loss against the Los Angeles Clippers. Also, Mac Jones is being shipped, or at least reportedly, Belichick is trying to do so. That's what the reports are coming in from numerous NFL insiders, one in particular. I'm here to tell you, if you're the Patriots, do it as quickly as possible. I'll get to that later in the show and at the end of today's show. A former Patriot quarterback, Cam Newton, there's one tendency, and I've talked about it numerous times with Cam, there's one trait that he really lacks that all the great quarterbacks have. He does not have it. I'll get to that at the end of today's show after a recent interview that the former MVP did. But I wanted to start, excuse me, gosh, I got a little something in my throat there. All right, there we go. But first, the MVP race is over. You know that, right? Like, the MVP race is a wrap after what Joel Embiid did against the Boston Celtics, or rather, to the Boston Celtics on Tuesday night. Now, for context, Celtics did not have Robert Williams, which, if we're being fair and honest, Robert Williams is rarely there, it seems like. Deals with a lot of injuries dating back to last season. And they were without Jaylen Brown, their all-star number 2 guy behind Jason Tatum. But nevertheless, this is a Boston Celtics team that is top 3 in defense in the NBA. This is a Boston Celtics team that is the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. And it's a team that we all agree is absolutely a threat to, if not win the East, win the title, especially considering what they've done to Milwaukee the last few games. So Joel Embiid was still playing an excellent basketball team. The Sixers were playing an excellent basketball team. And Joel Embiid dropped 52 points. And this isn't, listen, we've had plenty of 50-point games. Heck, we had 2 70-point games. Donovan Mitchell and Damian Lillard. Luka Doncic had a 60-20-20 game, the first in NBA history. We've had some unbelievable scoring outputs this season in the NBA. But how about this? Joel Embiid scored over half his team's points. Normally, when a guy scores 50, 60, 70, and this is usually how it's always been, with rare exceptions. I remember Jordan scored almost half the team's points in Game 6. The iconic game against Utah where he hit the shot over Byron Russell. Stuff like that. But that was a score in the low 80s. This is different. I'm sorry, the high 90s, if I'm not mistaken. In this instance, 76ers scored 103 and Embiid scored 52. He did it on 25 shots. 20 for 25 for the field, not to mention 13 rebounds and 6 assists, just to make the stat line look that much better. And we all agree that the MVP race comes down to, really for the second year in a row, the 3 bigs. Embiid, Jokic, Giannis. Now, Jokic has 2 MVPs, as does Giannis. Matter of fact, they're the last 4 MVPs of the league to this point. But to me, I've gotten to a point where the folks that think Jokic is the MVP, I'm talking about the hardcore Jokic stans, if you will. There's nothing you can do to change their mind. Because they'll pull some second, third, 15th level stat, out of nowhere, talking about how he's the greatest defensive player of the modern era. Like, there are literally second and third level stats to back that stuff up. Obviously, he's not even as good of a defensive player as Embiid is. Dang sure not as good as Giannis on that end of the floor. To me, it came down to this last week. We are in the last week of the regular season. Today is Thursday. We've got, including today, 4 days left of the NBA regular season. It's crazy how fast it went by. And I felt like going into this last week, I had Embiid as my favorite, Giannis is number 2, Jokic number 3. But I still said it's still up for grabs. Like, it's still out there for one of those 3 to take it. Embiid took it on Tuesday night. Not to mention, and this matters, trust me, the voters take this stuff into account. Same night, this same Tuesday night in Houston, Texas, the Denver Nuggets, who without Jokic had just beaten the Golden State Warriors on Sunday. No Jokic, but they had Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. had a big night, and the role players stepped up. They had this young big who played well. Beat the Golden State Warriors with Steph, with Clay, with Draymond, with Jordan Poole. They get Jokic back against the last place team in the West, the Houston Rockets, who are trying to lose games and lost by 21. And Jokic, by the way, by his standards, was terrible. Nikola Jokic in this game, 14 points, 10 rebounds, only 4 assists for the point center, as we call him. Last night, and I don't think it's a huge ding, but it matters. The Milwaukee Bucks clinched the number 1 seed without Giannis Antetokounmpo and Chris Middleton, by the way. Shows how deep they are against a good Bulls team. A Bulls team that if you watch them the last 2-3 weeks, they play pretty good basketball. They've beaten the Lakers. Like, Bulls are playing good basketball. DeMar DeRozan's doing his thing. Zach LaVine. Then they tailed off as of late. They lost to Atlanta the other night. And they're on the second night of a back-to-back. But the Milwaukee Bucks without Giannis this year, and this is where I go to most valuable player, and this is not to say Giannis is not valuable. I think he's the second best basketball player on the face of the earth. The Milwaukee Bucks, last time I checked, were 5-6 games over 500 without Giannis. Not that reminiscent of those Cleveland teams back in the day where they struggled just to compete. Forget win. Compete if LeBron James is out of the starting lineup. And here you got Joel Embiid, who gets, obviously, as you can tell by the stat line, no help in the scoring department from really anybody else on the roster. Being, again, Harden had 20, okay. Maxey had a bad night, 2 for 8. PJ Tucker came up big off the bench. He was 3 for 3 from three-point range. We know he's not a scorer. Tobias Harris, making all that money he's making, gave you 5 more points than I did. And the bench gave you nothing. Gave you 10 points in total. Embiid said, get on my back. We're going to win this game. Now, did the game mean anything in terms of standings? No. Boston, I don't think that, they hadn't clinched the number 2 seed. Yeah, I think they officially did last night. But they were, I think it was a 3-game lead with 3 games to go. Chances of Boston blowing that were slim to none. Or 3-game lead with 4 games to go. Chance of Boston blowing that, they'd have to just completely self-demolition, do a self-demolition job to lose that. And like Doc Rivers said after the game, it's over. To quote the great Kenny the Jet Smith, it's over, ladies and gentlemen, from the dunk contest. I don't know what more you need to see. The Nuggets are fine without Jokic. The Bucks are more than fine. Bucks are a very good basketball team. A championship contender? Absolutely not. But Drew Holiday was an all-star this year and is having the best season of his career. Bobby Portis was remarkable and has been remarkable ever since he's been in Milwaukee off the bench. You got guys like Pat Connaughton who've played well. Not a fan of his, but Grayson Allen, who's played extremely well for the Milwaukee Bucks. Brook Lopez, who might be Defensive Player of the Year. It's either him or Jaren Jackson, in my view. That is a deep Milwaukee team. I think they're the best team in the league as we sit here today. Now, Giannis takes them to a whole new level, of course, because, again, I think he's the second best player in the world. But when it's all said and done, it's most valuable player this year. What more do you need to see? At this point, it's confirmation bias if you're pro Embiid. And if Jokic were to have a big, 30, 15, and 10 night against, I don't know, whoever the Nuggets play later down the stretch these last couple of games of the year, do I anticipate that? Probably not, because the Nuggets are probably going to rest some guys, get ready for the playoffs. I have the same question as the Sixers head coach Doc Rivers does. What more do you need to see? Again, I always point back to the fact that back in January against the Nuggets, it was a Saturday, right? Yeah, Saturday, January 28th. Embiid and Jokic faced off, and while Nikola Jokic had a solid stat line, 24, 9, and 8, that's good. 8 for 12 from the field, 2 for 2 from 3. You'll take that. You go from, oh, you'll take that to give me all that and a bag of chips. Whatever side you want to choose. From Joel Embiid, who, drop a cool 47, 18, and 5. You say, yeah, but he sat out of that game against the Nuggets last week. That's because he knows, okay, this game on Monday night against Denver, man, I'm worried more about, in Embiid's mind, I've already won the MVP. That shows you the confidence of Joel. I've already won the MVP. I don't need to prove it again after I kicked this dude's you-know-what back in January. We're worried about the playoffs. Because the reality is, I've never been to a conference finals. Giannis has a championship, and Jokic has at least been to a conference finals. They have a better playoff resume than I do. So he's like, I've proven it. It's already in the bag now. That what happened against Boston, I think clinched it, but for Embiid, this is icing on the cake. Again, and the last thing I'll bring up, are we just going to discount the fact that the man is averaging 33 and 10? There's not that many guys in the last 30, 40 years that have averaged that many points. I mean, you're talking about Michael, Kobe, AI, Harden. Like, that's it. Matter of fact, I think that's the list. Those are the only guys that's averaged as many points as Embiid has this season in the last few years. And he's on tap to win a second straight scoring title, which hasn't been done, to my knowledge, since I think Shaq. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think it's been done since Shaq. He's the MVP. I mean, again, does he need to prove it in the playoffs? Of course, but I would argue so does Jokic. He's lost 8 of his last 9 playoff games. Now, Giannis, you're like, yeah, he's the main man. He won a championship, won finals MVP. He was otherworldly against the Phoenix Suns in the 2021 finals. And that's totally fair. But I bring up the fact that Milwaukee is still a very good team. Not a great team, but a very good team without Giannis. I think if Giannis was not in the Bucks, they'd be the Knicks. And this is talking about the successful year the Knicks have had. I'm not so sure Milwaukee wouldn't be in that position. They still have an all-star in Holiday. Middleton is a former all-star. Brook Lopez is the defensive player of the year, arguably, and has been really good on the offensive end. Bobby Portis, Connaughton, and Grayson Allen. Case closed. Joel Embiid is your MVP in 2023. No question about it. Parnell is in the comments. John Rivera says, are we live? Yes. John, we are live. Yeah, I thought about not doing a live show today, but I wasn't certain. But I was like, you know what? Let's go live. I love answering the comments. And plus, just full transparency here. The account I have with StreamYard, I can't put this as a stream except for on YouTube, which is a long process. Don't even have time to get into it. If my show exceeds an hour, I'm like, I don't want to condense these topics into an hour, partly because I talk too much about my topics. But hey, I love doing the live format. Parnell, what's up, Parnell? Teammate of mine here at the Grid, the Commanders Demand podcast. Please go check his show out. He says, I give it to Embiid. Embiid at one point had 9 consecutive games of 30 or more points. Bucks have a good record without Giannis, and Jokic and Denver have been struggling. Recently, Denver lost to H-Town. Exactly, by 21 points. And Jokic was terrible. Did not assert himself whatsoever in that game. Parnell, people make the argument against Embiid when he sat out against Denver at Denver and recently losing at Milwaukee with Giannis. And Parnell asks, who's better than Giannis? Well, he resides in the Bay Area. He stands 6'3" and can shoot the basketball from the parking lot. I think you know who I'm talking about. I think those are the two best. I think it's close. I mean, this isn't where for 10, 12 years, LeBron was the best player and nobody even debated it. The debate was, okay, who's second? Is it Kevin Durant? Is it, obviously for a time there, was it Steph, Kobe, Duncan? But it was LeBron by a mile. There wasn't even an argument. Those who did make the argument weren't watching the games, clearly. And I'll get to LeBron and the Lakers later in the show. But currently, when you consider what Steph is doing, he's averaging 30 on nearly 50, 40, 90 shooting. with 6 assists and 6 rebounds. He's extremely effective on the defensive end, certainly more so than people think. I mean, back in the day when Steph was more slight, if you will, everybody attacked him. Kyrie Irving attacked him. Chris Paul attacked him. I mean, all the Damian Lillard, all the great guards of the league did. Guys don't do that as much anymore because Steph has put on more muscle. Steph has it seems as if he's gotten more explosive over the last few years. But I think it's Steph and Giannis right now. I think it's Steph's league, just given his accomplishments, given what he's done over the course of his career. He's more accomplished than Giannis, but obviously Giannis is, I think, just now going into his prime. I'd say Steph still has, I don't even think I'm going out on a limb here, 3 years, 4 years. You say, Bryce, he's 35. I've said on the show, Steph is going to be the Tom Brady of the NBA. He's not going to be the greatest player ever. Now, if Steph wins like 7 rings, okay, we may have to have it. We may need to start having a conversation, but I doubt that's going to be the case. Although I will not be mad at that as a Warriors fan. But I think because of how he takes care of his body, A, and B, how he plays the game. See, Steph plays a game that is unlike, LeBron's was never reliant on athleticism, but athleticism was sort of like the cherry on top to basically the perfect basketball player. Phenomenal passer. Can score almost at will. Unbelievable basketball IQ. I mean, he's probably smarter than most of the coaches he's played for, if not all. Maybe Spoelstra, but Spoelstra was a young coach at that time, so I'd say probably LeBron has the advantage there. LeBron has declined in recent years. Now he's still, I think, a top 5 player in the NBA. But like I was saying about LeBron earlier, when LeBron was the best player in the league, it wasn't even close. It was not even. It's like Jordan in the 90s. Who's second? Is it Barkley? Is it Malone? Hakeem? David Robinson toward the end of Michael's career? Of course, I don't think Shaq was in that discussion yet. But it was like Jordan and everybody else. And at that time, it was LeBron and everybody else. So, but that's where I think it is today. I think Steph's game is going to age very well. Parnell says, I think Giannis is better because of versatility. Look, Giannis is the best player in the NBA by a mile on both ends of the floor because he could give you 30 and he can, lock down your best defender or he can protect the paint. I just think because today's NBA is more of a shooter's league than ever, like Giannis to me is the outlier to the rule that I've had on this show for a long time. You can't be a superstar if you can't shoot. No, Giannis isn't incapable of making a jumper. He'll make the 3 from time to time. His mid-range has gotten better as of late. But he's by no means a great shooter. Now, for him, it doesn't matter because he's the most dominant player within 5 feet of the basket since the great Shaquille O'Neal, in my view. But everybody else, you kind of got to be able to knock down a jumper. Steph has changed it in that regard, and because he is the guy who revolutionized the game, because he is sort of the architect of the modern NBA, and it plays right into his wheelhouse. I mean, the 90s NBA played right into Jordan's wheelhouse. You could say the same about the early 2000s with Shaq and everybody. I think if you not created, that's going too far. If you, again, I'll use the word again, revolutionize the way that the sport is played right into the way you want it to, and you're still absolutely at your peak, at your prime. And that's the thing I said about Steph last year. I remember saying right after the finals were over, I said, what's scary about Steph, it feels like he's still getting better. It's like he improves every year, and the man's 35 years old. Like, when's the tail off going to be? 40? 39 maybe? It's incredible what he's been able to do. Parnell, who's your most improved player of the year? I say Shea or Jalen Brunson. I'd say Shea Gilgeous-Alexander as well. He's averaging 30. I wouldn't say nobody. I saw some people kind of like OKC this year. I had them as probably third to last in the West. I didn't see OKC competing. I feel like they were still in tank mode. They had 1 million draft picks. Obviously, they just took Chet Holmgren last year, but he didn't play because poor kid, he's so skinny, he couldn't stand up, obviously, to LeBron. First time he ever plays LeBron, he gets injured in that Drew League game and, got injured. Again, that's always been my concern for Chet Holmgren. Man, he's skinny. But I feel like OKC was still in a tank job, and here they are today. It's between them or Dallas. Utah's probably going to tail off towards the end. They're a game and a half back with 2-3 left. I doubt Utah makes it. But it's between Dallas and Oklahoma City. And as we say here today, Oklahoma City's the 10th seed. They're in the play-in tournament. And what Shea has done this year, I'm pretty sure when I said Shea, for me, if we're talking most valuable player, like I was just talking about, where I've got Embiid, Giannis, Jokic in that order, I said Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is my fourth place. I think he's absolutely fourth for MVP because what OKC's done this year. But I remember looking when I was doing some research on Shea, I think his points per game, that's what I'm checking right now to make sure. I'm pretty sure his points per game has gotten better every year. Let me check. Yes, literally every year his points per game has gone up. It's gone from 11 to 19 to 24 to 24 and a half to 31. So I'm with you, partner. Now, Jalen Brunson has a case. I think it was a crime that Jalen Brunson wasn't an all-star this year. I'm actually going to talk about the Jalen Brunson Dallas Mavericks thing. Mark Cuban was very vocal about the fact that, about why Jalen is no longer a Maverick. I'll talk more about that on tomorrow's show, but he absolutely has a case. He'd probably be number 2 for me. I mean, there's plenty of other candidates out there. Lauri Markkanen is in that discussion for the Utah Jazz. There's plenty of guys you can definitely put in that. All right, moving on to something that I did not anticipate talking about this on my show this week because this story sort of just came out of left field. And look, I'm going to preface what I'm going to say with this. How do I want to address this? Okay. To the stick to sports crowd, I've addressed them from time to time on this show over the last 3 or so years. That moniker's dead. If you're still in that crowd, move on. It's probably better for you, for your mental health and everything. It's just it's not doesn't apply anymore. I'm okay with any athlete talking about politics, whether they're conservative, liberal. I don't care. They have every right to speak about politics just like the average everyday citizen does. And, but also to the stick sports crowd, sort of my response is, I do. I never talk about politics in the show, but when politics ventures into sports, I don't really have a choice. It's a story. It's a major story. And so I got to address it. So, as you guys all know, LSU won the women's national title on Sunday against the Iowa Hawkeyes. Obviously, the story of the tournament, Caitlin Clark, who had one of the greatest tournaments of all time. Again, I mentioned she had a 41-point triple-double against Louisville in the Elite Eight, dropped another 41, almost put like a LeBron there in 2016. Don't remind me. That was a scarring series for me. But another 41 against South Carolina, the undefeated number 1 best team, defending national champions. And then she did score 30, although she sort of tailed off at times of the second half against LSU. But LSU clearly had the better team. Angel Reese, while she was in foul trouble, made her impact, had a double-double. She broke the record for most double-doubles by any player in women's history in a season. You had Alexis Morris, who was the MVP of the game, was I think most outstanding player of the game, was phenomenal, knocking down mid-range shots. You had that Jasmine Carson, I think it was her name, came off the bench and went 7 for 7 in the first half. LSU just had a better team. There's no other way around it. They didn't give up the lead after they took it in the first quarter. Did not look back. Iowa got it down to 7, but LSU, primarily Alexis Morris, kind of sniffed it out. But obviously there's been a discussion. I addressed it on Monday's show about the whole Angel Reese pointing to the ring and then the "You Can't See Me" celebration to Caitlin Clark, right next to Caitlin Clark, and sort of the double standards that came along with that. I said it had to do, number one, you can celebrate a championship however you want, just as long as you're not attacking someone's character, you're taking shots at their family. Like, again, I said it'd be different if she like flipped her off or something, or made like an inappropriate gesture. That's different. But pointing to a ring finger, doing "You can't see me," I got no issue with that at all. None. It's trash talk. It's part of basketball. By the way, you know who wasn't offended? Caitlin Clark. She said as much the other day on ESPN. But there's been a big firestorm around it. A lot of discussion around LSU. Some discussion around Iowa. And our First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, who was at the game, by the way, in Dallas, Texas, she had something to say about it. Not the controversy, but she was speaking. I think she was in Denver, if I'm not mistaken. I want to make sure I'm getting this right. Hang on. Okay, she told this to, according to the Associated Press. She said, quote, "I know we'll have the champions come to the White House. We always do. So we hope LSU will come. But I'm going to tell Joe, I think Iowa should come too because they played such a good game." Okay, so you have that quote from the First Lady that not only should the champions come, the runner-ups should come. Now, the White House, as we all saw, okay, this does not look great. And her personal press secretary, Vanessa Valdivia, I think is her name, Vanessa Valdivia. She said, quote, "The First Lady loved watching the NCAA Women's Basketball Championship game alongside young student athletes and admires how far women have advanced in sports since the passing of Title IX. Her comments in Colorado were intended to applaud the historic game and all women athletes. She looks forward to celebrating the LSU Tigers on their championship win at the White House." And Angel Reese had a response to Dr. Biden that I'll get to later in the show, or later in the segment. There's a lot of issues from a historical context. I could be wrong on this, but I did the research. I checked. I did not see an instance in which the White House had the runner-ups along with the champions to the White House. I had never seen that. If that's the case, we need to, let's see. We need to invite the Boston Celtics. They should have went with the Golden State Warriors. We should have brought the Philadelphia Phillies with the Houston Astros. This one's really laughable. We should have brought TCU with Georgia after they got smacked, hammered, however you want to describe it. What was it, like 63? I think 63-7, something crazy. Georgia scored the 60s. TCU got a first quarter touchdown. That was all she wrote for the Horned Frogs. And we should invite the Philadelphia Eagles along with the Kansas City Chiefs. So that in itself, we talk all the time. I haven't talked about much on my show, but you hear this participation trophy culture. Like, we hate how, everybody, doesn't matter how good or bad you are, everybody gets a trophy. And, we talk about it in the problem with that in youth sports, and how, you need to earn. You got to earn these awards. You got to earn these trophies. You got to earn your accomplishments, not just in sports, but obviously in life. And not to discredit the runner-ups, because they did get to the championship round. They did have a great season, but they didn't come away with what they came to come away with, so to speak. Eagles didn't come home with the Lombardi Trophy. The Phillies didn't come with the Commissioner's Trophy. The Celtics didn't come with the Larry O'Brien Trophy. TCU and all these other college champions. San Diego State the other day. Congrats to UConn, by the way, on a championship. 5th in the last 20-plus years. San Diego State didn't get what they came to get. Neither did Iowa. Like, there's a certain moniker that comes with being the champion. You get rings, you get the trophy, you get all this press and attention in the offseason. You get all the interviews, you're on the late night shows, you're on the cover of magazines. Like, there's something that comes with that the runner-ups don't get. Now, we've had great performances by runner-ups in past years in sports. Plenty. But they don't get the same shine, and with all due respect, nor should they, that the champions do. So just from a historical context, just from a competition context and perspective, no. Iowa, with all due respect, had a great season. They had the best player in women's college basketball. They shouldn't go to the White House. And Caitlin Clark, by the way, said as much on ESPN. As for what the First Lady said as it pertains to the two teams specifically, not in the championship context, but I'm talking about the two teams, LSU, Iowa. I want to reread her quote once again, what she said. "I know we'll have the champions come to the White House. We always do. So we hope LSU will come. But I'm going to tell Joe," obviously President Biden, "I think Iowa should come too because they played such a good game." Let me pose this scenario to you. If Iowa won convincingly. I think the final score to this game, I think it was 102-85. I mean, 102 points in a 40-minute span is unbelievable. It's credit to LSU. 102-85, Iowa wins. And Caitlin Clark went to Angel Reese and pointed to the ring finger and did I call it the John Cena, you can't see me celebration that she did against Louisville. And reportedly she did against South Carolina, but she did it to her own bench. She did the you can't see me to her own bench while they were playing South Carolina. So that became sort of her thing, almost like the Steph Curry night to a certain degree. If she did that to Angel Reese, if LSU got blown out, if Iowa blew the doors off them, were shooting the lights out from beyond the three-point line, played good defense when it mattered, do you think LSU is getting an invite to the White House? Because I'm going to be real with y'all. I really don't think so. I really don't. I got a lot of pushback, particularly on social media, which who doesn't, for when I was talking about and I figured this would be the case, but when I was talking about the race aspect of the criticism of Angel Reese's exchange with Caitlin Clark. Not really exchange. It was more of a, one-person exchange in that regard. And what I think is so interesting about the entire situation is, again, Caitlin Clark did the same thing. Plenty of white athletes have been very, again, I use the word braggadocious, one could even label cocky, and did not get near the vitriol. It's one thing. Angel Reese did not just get criticized. She was eviscerated by many on social media. They were people calling her out of her name, grown people shouting profanities. It's like, first of all, she's a 20-year-old kid. I know she's a young adult, I'm around her same age, but we're essentially kids who just won a championship, and that's what you're calling her? That's again, it makes you question why certain individuals are so, to use a Gen Z term, triggered by what Angel Reese did. It makes you question certain things. Now, I don't know if Dr. Biden was bothered by it. I have no idea. She's given us no indication as to how she felt about the situation. But again, and this is just, I don't care if people like it or not. It's just how it is. When you have the dynamics, again, we had this, I think the best example is 80s Celtics, 80s Lakers. The best rivalry to me in NBA history. Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. Okay, those are the two best players in the NBA. Opposite sides of the coast. The Celtics were a mostly white team. Lakers were a mostly black team, led by a black superstar, Magic, and a white superstar in Bird. And you had a divide at that time. A lot of white people pulled for the Celtics. A lot of black people pulled for the Lakers. Not to say there were exceptions, obviously, but that's how it was. Now, I don't think in this game it was the whites. The white people pulled for the Hawkeyes and the black people pulled for LSU. I don't think that plays factor. I don't. But it makes you question. I mean, is it unfair to ask the question about why is it that Iowa gets an invite as well after the whole firestorm? I mean, I posed the question here. If LSU wins and there's no Angel Reese pointing to the ring finger or you can't see me, if that never happens, does Iowa get an invite to the White House? I'm just presenting those as questions, a little, food for thought, if you will. Now, am I implying that Dr. Biden is a racist? Absolutely not. To this point, she is, to me, to be a racist, you got to have a track record. You got to have a history of saying hateful, awful things about a certain group of people. The same thing if you label somebody a sexist. If they said numerous bad things about somebody of the opposite sex, particularly men towards women, obviously, then you're a sexist. Then you're a racist. I don't have a history with that with Dr. Biden. I do with other individuals. I certainly do for the former president, but we won't even get into that. But part of the reason, if we're going into a deeper discussion, which I don't really have time to get into this today's show, but sort of on the surface, part of the reason that we still have a lot of the problems in America with race today is because of people like this. Well-meaning. By all accounts, I think Dr. Biden seems like a wonderful person. She's done so much for kids, and she seems like a great, personality, and it seemed like be a pleasure to meet and hang out with the whole nine. I don't think she necessarily understood what she was saying by this. It's sort of when people call it the bias that the people have when it comes to racism. Again, it's not saying she's racist. I don't even know that this is necessarily a racist comment. But the undertones are what has gotten everybody talking. The undertones is what got the White House to immediately, her press secretary, more specifically, to totally shut it down. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing that out there. But like I said, LSU should go the White House. Although I did see Angel Reese didn't seem all that thrilled about it. I think we have. Let's see. Okay, I have the quote. Angel Reese was on a podcast the other day, and she's not down with the First Lady. She said, "quote I'm not going to lie to you. I don't accept the apology." Let me stop there. It wasn't really an apology. A and B. It didn't come from Dr. Biden. The statement I just read came from a press secretary. It did not come from Dr. Biden, and it wasn't really an apology. It was more of a clarification. You see people do that a lot. They get in trouble and they don't apologize. They clarify. But anyways, Angel Reese, quote, "I'm not going to lie to you. I don't accept the apology because of you said what you said. I said what I said. And like, you can't go back on certain things you say. I mean, you feel like they should have came because of sportsmanship, right? They can have the spotlight. We'll go to the Obamas. We'll see Michelle. We'll see Barack." So I'll tell you what else is interesting about the whole going to the White House dynamic, not going to the White House dynamic is not necessarily Angel Reese or the players. It's with Kim Mulkey, who, as we know, is a staunch supporter of the former president before President Biden and after President Obama, of course. That to me is just really fascinating as to what LSU is going to do. They got to do something. Whether they go to see Mr. President Obama or First Lady Michelle Obama, or if they go to the White House with President Biden and First Lady Dr. Jill Biden, I'm curious to see what Kim Mulkey does. But look, ultimately, that's not Angel Reese's call because she is one player on the team. It's not her call as to whether they go or not. I'm sure they'll just talk about it as a team, make a decision in the coming days, weeks, and potentially months. But I do get the frustration. Angel Reese, certainly her being black, she understands sort of what was lying below this. Again, I don't even think intentionally. So we'll see how it continues to develop and play out. But like I said, that really was not an apology by Dr. Biden. It was more of a clarification, and it didn't even come from her. It came from a press secretary. But we'll see how this develops over the coming days. I'm just really curious to see because obviously we know Kim Mulkey has a – and listen, I like I said on Monday, she's a fantastic coach. There's no denying that. She's a 4-time NCAA champion. There's no denying how great she is as a coach. But she certainly has a colorful and questionable history off the court with a number of things, some of it including her strong association with the 45th president. We'll put it that way. We'll leave it at that. Let's move on to the NFL, though, to the New England Patriots. We're coming off a disappointing season, 8-9, missed the playoffs. Made some nice offseason acquisitions. They had a Mike Gesicki, who you guys know I like. He's not a good blocking tight end, but he's an excellent pass catcher, and that's a lot of tight ends these days. I think Travis Kelce's kind of changed the game in that regard. Tony Gonzalez, you could argue before that. And they added Juju Smith-Schuster, who, along with Travis Kelce, was a huge contributor, definitely in the Super Bowl, to the Chiefs winning it all this year. So they had two. The Patriots have been desolate in the wide receiver department. Heck, the weapons department. It's why Tom Brady left. It's one of the reasons Tom Brady left, because his last year in New England, he's like, man, what are you giving me? Okay, Gronk just retired. You let go of guys who really worked with me. Danny Amendola, Edelman's getting older. At that point, he was his second to last year in the league. Like, I've got nothing to work with. And then I look over at Tampa Bay, and they got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And at the time, they had O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate. I'm going to bring Gronk with me. I'm going to bring Leonard Fournette and Antonio Brown. And you saw what happened. Tampa Bay, all they did was win the Super Bowl. But it's kind of been that case in New England for quite some time. So they made some nice offseason acquisitions. The question is, what the heck are they going to do at quarterback? Now, a year ago, to many, that would have been are you nuts? Mac Jones had a pretty good rookie season. They got to the playoffs. He was up for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Now, as you guys know, I've never been a Mac Jones fan. Since the day he came out of Alabama to the NFL draft in 2021, I said he has a, I don't want to say a noodle arm. That's kind of mean, but let's just say his arm is not that of Josh Allen. Let's just put it that way. He's completely immobile in a league where, in order to be one of the absolute cream of the crop, best of the best quarterbacks, you've got to at least be able to move a little bit, to extend plays outside of the pocket to a certain degree. Now we know there are guys like Josh Allen who is not hesitant whatsoever to run. Patrick Mahomes, like that big run he had in the Super Bowl, and he's had plenty of other big runs in his career. Think about the Tennessee Titans run a few years back. Joe Burrow can move. Justin Herbert can move. Plenty of guys. Obviously, we know about Lamar Jackson's ability. Like, in order in 2023 to be an excellent, I mean, best of the best quarterback, you've got to be able to move. And Mac Jones can't do that. He can't. He showed that at Alabama. He was run down at times by defensive tackles. So look at his film at times with the Crimson Tide. And certainly that he wasn't going to be able to do that in the NFL. And as we saw this past season rather, his leadership tendencies are questionable. I mean, it was a divided locker room. I heard Devin McCourty was on a podcast the other day, who just recently retired, a really good Patriot, great Patriot, really. And he was talking about that, how there was, people were talking about, is it Mac, is it Bailey? Talking about Bailey Zappi, who replaced an injured Mac Jones for 2 games last year. It's like, okay, the fact that there was even a divide in the locker room tells you everything you need to know. Like, for example, I always compare it to the Cowboys situation, right? People say, oh, well, the Cowboys went, what were they, 3-1, 4-1 with 3-1 with Cooper Rush. Oh, they were 3-1. They were winning games. Yeah, first of all, the defense was playing out of its mind. And B, the Cowboys offense was awful. Awful. Those 4 games. Just check the numbers. They were terrible. They broke 20 points like once, I think. But there was never a question. Now, Jerry Jones tried to start questions. Hey, we may have a quarterback controversy here in Dallas. No, you don't. No, you don't, Jerry. You never heard anything out of the Cowboys locker room. Boy, the locker room is divided. Is it Dak or is it Rush? It never came out. New England, it did. And according to Albert Breer, who's one of the most well-connected sources in the NFL, Bill Belichick, who is the team's de facto, obviously head coach, but the de facto general manager, he drafts the guys, he acquires guys in free agency, he makes the trades. Apparently, he's not all that sold on Mac Jones. Evidenced by the fact that, according to Albert Breer, he was looking to potentially ship him. Again, this is what, let me make sure I'm getting this right. Okay, according to Albert Breer of Monday Morning Quarterback, the Patriots mentioned Mac Jones' name in trade talks with multiple teams this offseason. He said, quote, Albert Breer, I think what happens was, and I got this on good authority, While those calls are being made during the combine before free agency, when teams are talking about names back and forth, Mac Jones's name came up a few times. And then he was talking about Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, who reported that the Patriots were shopping Jones as well to 4 teams: Vegas, Houston, Tampa Bay, Washington. Breer said, quote, Mike Florio presented the 4 teams. I know a couple of them at least did it hear from the Patriots on Mac Jones. I don't think Florio presented it in that way either. He said that those teams could potentially be involved. He didn't say those were the teams that the Patriots were shopping him to. And then here's this really interesting quote. Breer, the issue, I think this is his quote. I think part of the issue now is that they wouldn't get great value for him. And that, my friends, is Mac Jones. He's a backup. I've said that since the second he walked into the NFL. He is a backup quarterback. All the traits that you heard to describe him. He plays within the offense. He's pretty accurate. He's really smart. He's good with the coaches. All of those traits and tendencies you hear about backup quarterbacks. I asked this question in 2021. What was there about Mac Jones that blew you away? Because all the great quarterbacks in the NFL have something tangible that blows you away. Mahomes, where do we even start with him? Let's just put Mahomes to the side. He's in a galaxy of his own. Joe Burrow, yeah, he doesn't have the greatest arm, but the dude is accurate as freaking breeze at times. And he's cool. He's calm. He moves really well in the pocket. Again, deadly accurate. Doesn't turn the ball over. Mac Jones does turn the ball over a lot. You think about guys like Josh Allen. He could throw it from Buffalo to Miami. I mean, he's got the biggest arm in the NFL. Not to mention he's a huge athlete, can run over a linebacker, can leap over a linebacker. Special. Justin Herbert, monster arm, big, can move. Special. Aaron Rodgers for years, monster arm, really accurate. His mechanics may not be great, but he might be the most gifted thrower of the football we've ever seen. Special. What was there special about Mac Jones? What is there special about Mac Jones? Has Mac Jones, since he stepped in the NFL, taken a big leap of improvement thus far? What have we seen through 2 seasons that makes you believe he can take the Patriots to the promised land? Because if nothing else, he's in an AFC with Justin Herbert, obviously, with Patrick Mahomes, with Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, for the time being, Lamar Jackson, now Aaron Rodgers. I mean, elite quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence. That's another guy. What's special about Trevor Lawrence? What's not special? Obviously, he can move. Monster arm. Accurate. Doesn't turn the ball over that much at all. Certainly didn't in the second half of the season. Big, strong athlete. That's why never from the day that people were talking about, hey, he's not only is he a first-round pick, he could be the 3rd pick in the draft. I'm like, you guys are out of your minds if you think he's the 3rd pick in the draft. I think that's being evidenced now. He's like, Bryson, his rookie year, he had a solid stat line. It was like 22 touchdowns, 14 picks, right? He helped the Patriots get to the playoffs. They were a really good offense. Now they got blown out by Buffalo, but I mean, it's not Mac Jones' fault the defense gave up 40-plus points. And then year 2, he gets an actual offensive coordinator replaced with a defensive coordinator, Matt Patricia, and what's his name? Joe Judge calling plays. It's not fair, the kid. His weapons aren't that good. It's a tough division. You can't be brutal on Mac Jones. I actually said on this show in August, you can look it up, during training camp when the reports were coming out about how horrible the Patriots offense was with Matt Patricia, again, a defensive coordinator calling plays as the offensive coordinator. And I said, folks, I can't be that hard on Mac Jones this season. I can't. He's got an accountant giving him open heart surgery. That's basically what he's got. But things change. It wasn't just that Mac Jones had a bad year last year. It's that his backup, a 4th-round rookie, took the Patriots offense to a new level. You say, Bryson, that was 2 games. Let's look at the numbers from Bailey Zappe's 2 starts and compare them to Mac Jones' best 2 starts. Not his average stat line, his best 2 starts, which I looked at the numbers, looked at all the Patriots games that Mac started. To me, his best 2 games were against the Vikings, who, as we know, had a horrible pass defense, but Mac played very well in that game. And then the third to last game against the Cincinnati Bengals, he had a really good second half of that game. Mac's best 2 games, Zappe's best 2. Let's look at Zappe's 2 starts. Let's look at Zappe's starts, okay? 248.5 yards per game, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, average pass rating of 109, and team points per game, 33. Now, those starts, for context, were against the Detroit Lions and against the Cleveland Browns. Mac Jones, 2 starts. 311 yards per game, so a pretty substantial jump in yards. 4 touchdowns, just 1 tick up from Zappe's 3 touchdowns. 0 picks, props to Mac. 1 tick down from Zappe's 1 pick. A pass rating of 112, ever so slightly over Zappe's. You could basically call it the same. 112, 109 is all the same. Team points per game, down 11.5 points to 22. Mac today, I think, is a better quarterback than Zappe. It ain't by much. Again, that's not Mac's average. That's his best 2 games. At his peak, Bailey Zappe had the same weapons. Bailey Zappe had the same unqualified offensive coordinator. And you see what the results were. So yes, the Patriots, if given the opportunity, if somebody gives them a solid enough trade package to move on from Mac Jones, they should. Again, I keep beating this table. Lamar Jackson is still out there. Now, he's not a free agent. The Ravens can trade him. But the Patriots do have the assets. They've got they've got some defensive guys they can move on from. They've got a good number of draft picks. But something else too. The Patriots, let me make sure they're in the middle of the draft. They've got like the 17th pick or something like that. They could take a quarterback. I mean, we talk about the guys. Stroud and Young are probably going to go 1 and 2 in the draft. Levis is going to go in the top 5. Richardson, we'll see. But you're going to have 2 guys available. You're going to have Hendon Hooker from Tennessee, who you guys know I think is going to be a superstar in the NFL. Has all the qualities that every great quarterback has. And there's a kid from Stanford who I really like as a prospect that New England could take, who actually fits them pretty well in terms of what Belichick offensive coordinators usually do. You have options. You have an out while Mac is still in his rookie deal. That's one thing Belichick's bad about. Belichick's not great at admitting he was wrong on stuff. Because when he signs a certain guy, or he drafts a guy, he wants to show you he's right. He wants to show you he's the smartest guy in the room. That's why I remember when Brady first left, and up until they signed Cam Newton, seemingly at the 11th hour, they were going to roll with, what's the kid's name? Jarrett Stidham. Like, Jarrett Stidham's going to succeed Tom Brady? And then they eventually signed Cam Newton. It's like, okay, this one makes more sense. But Belichick's not good at admitting he was wrong. Admit you were wrong on Mac. You made the wrong pick. You selected the wrong quarterback. If nothing else, they should have taken maybe a wide receiver, which that draft had plenty of good wide receivers. And then you go with Cam Newton. Again, Cam Newton had the vaccination issue. You stick with Cam Newton, roll through 2021, see what happens. Maybe you do make the playoffs, just like you did with Mac. Then you move on from Cam, go into a transitional year, a rebuild year, and then you take your quarterback. Now, the good news is it's not been a train wreck with Mac. It's been well below expectations, well below what Patriots fans thought it would be, but it's not been a disaster. They have an out. Move on from Mac. Either trade for Lamar, or if you're like, that's too much money for Lamar and we're concerned about his durability, okay, fine. Take a quarterback in the draft. You could trade up, by the way. You could trade up into the top 10 and take one of the guys that you want. If Levis were to fall, again, I'm not high at all on Anthony Richardson, but if you like Richardson, if you have any common sense, and take Hendon Hooker, but Mac Jones is not the guy. I don't know how much more you guys need to see in New England. He's not. And I'm not comparing him to the standard of Tom Brady. I'm comparing him to the standard of Bailey Zappi. And he barely exceeds that. Barely. Sign and move on from Mac Jones if you're the New England Patriots. There's no question about it. Moving on, though, to, like I said, it's weird to be doing the show at this time. I know a lot of folks out there. John Rivera put in the comment section above, he said, is the show live? The show is live. I am talking to you right now. If you want to comment, feel free to do so, and I will answer your question or react to something that you say in the comments. But yeah, I figure I'm like, pre-recording, it's a little bit too much of a hassle. I'd have to kind of cram my topics in. It just wouldn't work. So, like I said, due to some personal scheduling conflicts, I decided to do the show earlier today. And the show will be earlier tomorrow, by the way. I'm not quite certain what time. I don't think it'll be at 3 Eastern, but it could be. I'll keep you on the loop on social media as to what the situation is going to be. And here's the story that I'm going to talk about tomorrow's show about Tyreek Hill saying he's going to retire after 2025. That's very, very interesting, and I actually think it's kind of a credit to Tyreek Hill. I'll get to that tomorrow on the show. I'm just looking at Twitter right now, and it's a video of Andrew Wiggins working out the Warriors facility. What a beautiful sight. What a beautiful, beautiful sight. Oh, and the Red Sox beat the Tigers. It's a good year. Or good day, rather, for me personally. With Wiggins back, Red Sox win. I mean, what's not to like? Let's move on to a team who's right in the thick of it with my Warriors and with the team they just faced last night, the Los Angeles Clippers. That would be the Lakers, who lost to the Clippers last night in the Crypto.com arena, what was technically designated as a road game. But as we know, we hear the audio when the Lakers and Clippers play. When LeBron scores or AD or Austin Reeves or somebody scores, you hear the, from the crowd. You don't hear a silenced murmur when a player scores as if it were an actual road game. But the Clippers beat the Lakers last night, 125-118, and the game really wasn't even that close. LeBron had a abysmal first half, only 3 points, and then he went crazy in the second half, had what seemed like, this isn't a shot at LeBron, but it seemed like a very quiet 30 just to get the Lakers back in the game. Listen, a lot of folks are saying, see, this is why the Lakers you can't rely on Anthony Davis, stay healthy. LeBron's getting up there in age. He can't play back-to-backs. I think it's a little bit of an overreaction to the media. And listen, here's the reality. With the Lakers and with the Cowboys and with the Yankees, there's always going to be overreaction. They're the three biggest brands in American sports. If things are going good, it's going great. If things are not going all that well, it's doom and gloom. We're never going to win again. I mean, that's the reality of those three brands because of the national media attention, because of the number of fans, not just in their cities, but around America, in the Cowboys case, and heck, in the Lakers case, around the world, even to the Yankees to a certain degree. I think people are kind of overreacting to this. And again, I've changed tune on the Lakers in the last couple of weeks. I said coming out of the All-Star break, I said, while I love the moves Pelinka made, and I think they'll work, they're not a championship contender because I didn't think they'd have enough time to really make them work to the point where you sit back and saying, hey, this is a team that could win 3 straight 7-game series starting on the road, which matters. Again, no team in the history of the NBA has won a championship in which they started all 4 series on the road. It's never happened. Makes it all the more cool of a story if my Warriors do it, which I think they will. But I don't think this is that big of a deal for the Lakers. It's the second night of a back-to-back. Now, if you want to say you're concerned because of how the Utah game ended, feel free. I was just as stunned as everybody else. The Lakers got a 10-point lead. A 10-point lead with with basically 103 seconds left, and the game goes to overtime. Like, that's unacceptable. LeBron blew a layup at the rim. Kelly Olynyk had that crazy bank-in 3. I mean, it was a disaster. AD missed free throws. But to the Lakers' credit, LeBron redeemed himself, hit the layup in overtime. They got the stop on the former Laker, Talen Horton-Tucker, won the game. But that was a 5 minutes they did not need to play, but they did. It's the second night of a back-to-back after a long road trip. Anthony Davis, we know how brittle he is. And LeBron James is in year 20. He's still great. He's still a top 5 player. He is in year 20, and he's dealt with plenty of injuries even this season. Facing a Clippers team that is coming off a loss to, I think, was it Memphis that beat them? The Pelicans that beat them before this. So you're kind of simmering after that. You're not feeling good. You got a bad taste in your mouth. You see how tight it is in the West, and you got 3 days rest. So you got fresh legs. You're pissed coming off a loss. The Lakers, on the other hand, are exhausted coming after kind of an emotional, hard-fought win that they really shouldn't have had to fight hard to get, particularly in the fourth quarter and overtime. I'm really not that concerned about it. Now, the final score is a little bit misleading. The Clippers with a 7-point win. This game really wasn't that close. The Lakers made some runs in the second half, made it interesting, but the Clippers went up, I think, as many as 20 plus. It was never really that close. Kawhi played well, the role players, Eric Gordon. Hey, Russell Westbrook and Russell Westbrook, I'll give him credit because I'm not a Westbrook guy. He's been a solid fit with the Clippers. Now, do I trust him in the playoffs? Not in the slightest, because his playoff history tells me that I shouldn't. But Russell Westbrook, let me look at his stat line. Yeah, 6 for 12, 2 for 4 from 3, hit both of those threes early on, 14 points. Russ was good. Russ was not a net negative for the LA Clippers, although he did have a negative plus minus, but then you could say Kawhi Leonard did as well. Again, Kawhi gave you 25. Zubats was good, gave you 17. They got tremendous help off the bench. Norman Powell was unbelievable, 27 off of 15 shots. I would have genuinely been surprised if the Lakers had won that game. I'm really, what would the story be coming into today if the Lakers had won the game? Look out west. Okay, Lakers have been in the cellar of the Western Conference with basically the Rockets and Spurs, which they were for most of the season. Pelinka makes these trades. LeBron comes back from injury. Anthony Davis has this renaissance. The Lakers are back. They are now the 5 seed, and they're the favorites to win the Western Conference. Which that, to me, would have been an overreaction. It's an exhausted team whose best 2 players are one old and the other really, really fragile. Neither of them at this stage in their careers are really built to play out back-to-backs, which is an indictment of AD because he's not even 30 yet. Actually, I think he is 30. I could be wrong about that. I think he's 30. Just now, though. And LeBron's 38 years old, still playing back-to-backs. Point is, the Lakers were not supposed to win this game. I mean, it was 30 minutes before tip-off that we even knew that LeBron and AD were going to play. There were numerous reports and speculation about, man, they might just go and sit this one out. Again, for the Lakers, they've got the Suns on Friday, which I cannot wait to watch. Friday night's going to be unbelievable because you've got Golden State Sacramento, which is a huge game for my Warriors. And then you've got Lakers Suns, which is a huge game for the Lakers. Means nothing for Phoenix because they're locked to the 4 seed. But you know what it means? We have not seen LeBron James and Kevin Durant on the same court playing one another since Christmas of 2018. KD better not roll his ankle in warmups like he did that one game, which caused him to miss a few weeks. He better not get injured in practice. We need to see LeBron James and Kevin Durant. It's been too long. It's been way too long. But the Lakers got the Suns at home and the Jazz at home, which is on Sunday, which is on Easter. I'm not so sure they can't win both. Matter of fact, I kind of feel like they will win both. And they still, by the way, could get the 6th seed, which it's so weird. The Pelicans are still in the running to get the 6th seed. As the Western Conference standings stand today, both them and the Lakers are tied at 41 and 39. Both have only 2 games left, but the Lakers have the tiebreaker. I still think New Orleans, I said coming into this week that they were going to lose 2 of 4. They lost to Sacramento. They came back, had this crazy comeback to beat the Memphis Grizzlies. And by the way, without Ja, which is even more of a shout out to the Pelicans, because I keep saying I think the Grizzlies are better without Ja. I think the evidence bears that out. But the Pelicans still have the Knicks and the Timberwolves left. I think they'll lose one of those games. I still maintain the Pelicans coming out after Sunday, a few days ago, will lose 2 of 4 games to close the regular season. So the Pelicans, I do not believe, will be in the playoffs. They'll be in the play-in and have to get into the playoffs via the play-in. So it really comes down to 3 teams: Clippers, Warriors, Lakers. And they're in the standings in that order. Clippers are 5, Warriors are 6, and then the first team in the play-in, Lakers are 7. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life, where the team at 5, the Clippers, want to move down 1 spot. The team at 7, the Lakers, want to move up 1 spot. And the team currently sitting at 6, my Warriors, we are perfectly content with where we're at. We don't want, no, because the thing is, none of these teams want to, A, be in the play-in, because guess what you don't have to do if you're in the play-in? Play basketball. You get it basically a week off, depending on if game 1 is Saturday or Sunday, because that's when the playoffs start. Next Saturday and Sunday is when all the game 1s are in the East and the West. You get a week off, recharge. You know, as Marshawn Lynch would say, take care of your mentals, take care of your chicken and your bread while you're at it, because businesses, you got to take care of the business, of course. Rest, take care of yourself, and get ready and recharge for the playoffs. Whereas if you're the play-in, we have to play another game, maybe 2 if you lose the first play-in game. Like, all 3 want to avoid the play-in, only 2 will. And all 3 do not want the 5 seed, because that means Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns in the first round. Like, your reward for playing so well the second half of the season, hey, great job. You know, the Lakers and Warriors have kind of been in the play-in, scenario all season. They played really well the last month. Your reward is Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns. What? Like, that's, nobody wants that. Not in round 1, at least. So the Clippers, again, tomorrow that's why I can't wait for these next 3 days. Tomorrow is going to give us a lot of answers, and the strategy will be interesting coming out of tomorrow. The Clippers play Portland. Now that Portland beat the Timberwolves, who needed to win that game, Portland is tanking essentially, and Portland beat them. The Clippers should beat the Blazers tomorrow night. Vegas doesn't have the line on that. I'm sorry, they play Saturday. My bad, they play Saturday. So the strategies going into Sunday will be interesting. The Clippers play the Blazers. There's no way they should lose that game. Okay? Tomorrow night, the Warriors play the Kings. Now, if you look at the standings, Sacramento is 2 games back of Memphis. If I'm not mistaken, they have the tiebreak. So in theory, they could still get the 2 seed, although it's unlikely. Memphis likely ends up as the 2 seed. Memphis is probably 2, Sacktown at 3. That's one of the hardest places to win the NBA. Light the beam, as they've been saying all season. The Kings haven't made the playoffs since 2006. I was 3 years old the last time. Actually, no, my birthday's in June. I was 2 years old the last time the Kings made the playoffs. That arena is going to be on fire. It's a potential playoff preview. Warriors, Kings, Bay Area rivalry. Well, it's not really a rivalry because it's the Warriors and it's the Kings. But, back and forth, same division, the whole bit. What happens if Golden State wins or loses? And then the Lakers have the toughest game, the toughest second to last game of those 3. They're at home, but they play Phoenix. Now, how interested will Phoenix be in winning this game? Phoenix is in. Not only is Phoenix in, they know for a fact we are going to start the playoffs and we are the 4 seed. Could Phoenix say, let's play our guys, just so there's not too long of a layoff, guys don't get rusty for the playoffs. The question is, because if they beat the Lakers are going to be in the play-in. It's as simple as that. The Lakers will be in the play-in tournament. If we lose, we could see the Lakers in the first round. If we win, we know we're not. It's me. If I'm the Suns, of those 3, the one I would want to play the most is the Clippers. Paul George is coming off an injury. Kawhi tends to get hurt this time of year in the postseason, and we know what the Clippers' history in the playoffs is. Whereas Golden State, championship pedigree, best player in the world, defending champions. Lakers, to me, greatest player of all time, top 5 player in LeBron, top 12 player in Anthony Davis, and a tremendous supporting cast. Give me the Clippers over either of those 2 teams if I'm the Suns. All of that gibberish to say, depending on what happens with the Clippers against the Blazers, the Warriors against the Kings, and the Lakers against the Suns, Could we see a scenario going into Sunday? Sunday is the last day of the regular season. All 30 teams in the NBA are playing their last game. Could we see, based on tiebreakers and whatever the scenario will be, could we see whoever the 5 seed is, if it's Golden State or the Clippers, most likely, could we see them possibly tank their last game to move down to 6? I don't think it's off the board for any of the 3. Now, the Lakers, it'll be hard. Actually, it'll be impossible for them to be the 5 seed going into Sunday. Now, they can still be the 5 seed, but the Clippers, the Lakers' chance of being the 5 seed are pretty slim because the Clippers would have to lose out. The Lakers have to win out. I do not envision the Clippers losing to the Blazers. So the Clippers will clinch a playoff spot, and then we'll see if they're 5 or 6. So like I said, I think Golden State is going to be the 6th seed. First of all, they are right now. Second of all, I think they're going to win their last 2. The Clippers are going to win their last 2, I believe. And at that point, it doesn't matter what happens with the Lakers. Now, I predicted going into the week, Lakers would be 5, Warriors would be 6. It looks like it'll be Clippers 5, Warriors 6. But the hoops that these teams, so to speak, no pun intended, it's basketball. But the hoops that these 3 teams will jump through to avoid Phoenix in the first round is going to be so fascinating. I cannot wait to see the strategies put into place. I really can't. Let's see. We got a couple comments here from Ricky Arana. I hope I'm saying your name correctly, Ricky. Ricky says Clippers can't shoot like that every night. Just saying. What do you think? Well, I mean, no. That's the thing too. Is you talk about their hot 3-point shooting. Let me see what the Clippers, because they were raining it in the first half. Clippers shot 12 for 29, 41% from 3. That's pretty good. Eric Gordon had a good first. I'm sorry, that's the Lakers. My bad. No, Clippers went 16 for 36, 44%. I remember Eric Gordon hit a few threes in the first quarter, kind of got them going. Terrence Mann was 2 for 2. Bones Highland was 3 for 6. Kawhi was 4 for 7. Like, they were really good. You're right, Ricky. They're not going to be able to shoot like that every night. And a lot of that factors in fresh legs. Clippers had 3 days off. Again, we all know when a shooter is struggling, like for those who don't know this, I'm trying to think of a good example. Eric Gordon. Let's just use Eric Gordon for the Clippers. If Eric Gordon is not only missing his threes, but coming up short in a lot of them, they're just kind of hitting front rim. They're not hitting back rim. They're not getting some weird bounces. If they're all like hitting front rim, his legs are tired. Like, that's always been the case for shooters. Why would any of the Clippers be tired? They had 3 days rest. The Lakers, on the other hand, exhausted, long road trip, second night of a back-to-back. Like, it makes sense. So, yeah, you're right. They're not going to shoot like that every night. But they do have shooters, no question. Kawhi can certainly knock down the three-pointer. Bones Highland, Gordon, Terrence Mann's improved as a three-point shooter. Who else? Well, they traded Luke Kennard to the Grizzlies. He can shoot. Who else they got? Paul George, when healthy, is one of the better shooters in the league. So it's interesting. Comment here from Complete Sports Media. Most of the Suns would definitely rather play the Clippers than the Lakers and Warriors. However, KD would rather face Golden State and not Draymond and his old team right away. Oh, absolutely. I'm with you. From KD's perspective, I think he wants Golden State to, like, right off the bat, because something else too. And we know narratives matter in sports. So athletes tell us all the time, man, I don't listen to noise. Yes, you do. Everybody listens to the noise that's created by fans, by the media. If Kevin Durant and the Suns beat the Warriors in round 1 and KD plays amazing, maybe even outplays Steph, which I think he'll have to for the Suns to win, that then puts the bug in everybody's ear like, oh, okay. KD just knocked the Suns were kind of reeling like around 7 seed, 6 seed. They had KD, and they have not lost a game since KD was inserted into the starting lineup. That's how good they are. Excuse me. It puts that sort of narrative out there that the Suns' first playoff matchup was the defending champs, and they knocked them out. And then you'll start to see this ball rolling. You just see. Now, I hope it doesn't happen as a Warriors fan. I'm knocking on wood that doesn't happen. But moving forward, you would see the narrative persist like, whoa, KD's on a mission. because the second round, they'd likely face Denver unless the Pelicans or somebody, or the Timberwolves are the 8 seed and they upset Denver, which I don't think will happen. But although New Orleans is kind of dangerous, I don't think Denver is like looking forward to playing New Orleans. Be that as it may, Denver in the second round. That's two-time MVP Jokic. Jamal Murray's having a great bounce back year. Michael Porter Jr. has been good. Supporting cast is good. That's a hard place. What's the Nuggets home record? I think it might be the best in the NBA. It is second best home record in the NBA to Memphis and slightly better than Golden State. The Nuggets are 33-7 at home. And a lot of that has to do with the altitude. A lot of that is due to the home court advantage as far as the crowd is concerned. So that's not an easy second round opponent. Okay, Phoenix beats them. What if they meet the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals? Then LeBron beats KD. It's like these are, or KD beats LeBron, rather. KD beats LeBron once again in the playoffs, and then Phoenix wins the finals. Then the discussion around KD would be similar to what it was around Steph last year. Like, dang, is KD top 10 all time? Now, I think KD's like 13 or 14. Like my top 10, I've been very consistent on this since last year, although I did change 1 and 2. After LeBron broke the scoring record, I'm like, I can't fight anymore. He's the greatest. So my personal top 10 is 1 to 10, LeBron, Jordan, Kareem, Kobe, Magic, Duncan, Steph, Bird, Shaq, Russell. With Wilt at 11, Hakeem 12th, and then I think you have an argument at 13. You guys like Oscar Robertson. I think you have Isaiah Thomas, Kevin Durant's in that discussion, Jerry West. Like those are kind of the 4 for like 13. My top 12 is kind of set. Although Steph, now LeBron's currently playing, but I think he's the GOAT. Steph is currently playing and can still move up. KD's on the outside of the top 10, but absolutely can move into the top 10. And I think pretty soon in the next 3 to 4 years, Giannis will put himself in that discussion if he wins more championships and more MVPs. So it's interesting. It's going to be very, very fascinating to see how the next few days play out as far as what the playoff scenario looks like. The fact that nobody wants to be 5, which guarantees you're in the playoffs, but it means you have to face Phoenix, and nobody wants to be 7 because you avoid Phoenix, but you're in the play-in, and you have to play minimum 1 more game, maybe 2, which would be an ultimate disaster for any of these 3 teams. Everybody wants 6 because it means Sacramento, who's great offensively, has a great home court and a great coach, but they play 0 defense and they've never been to the playoffs. And in the second round, you get Memphis in all likelihood, although it could be the Lakers or whoever's the 7 seed is. It's fascinating. I can't wait to see it. Last topic of the day. Did not expect that 7 to go that long, but that's why I love the NBA. These playoff chases toward the end are very fascinating, and everybody wants the 6th seed in the West. Rightfully so, by the way. And I think my Warriors will be 6. But last segment revolves around Cam Newton. So, you guys know I'm not the biggest Cam guy. I don't discount whatsoever how fantastic he was in that 2015 season when he won the MVP. Carolina got to the Super Bowl. But I've always made the case, and shout out to my guys at the Fan Perspective podcast, John Rivera and Henny Dre. John's been on the show numerous times, and he frequently is in the comment section, which I greatly appreciate. Great podcast. But they were talking about the other day on their show, is Cam Newton a Hall of Famer? I don't think so. Here's my thing. You say, well, he's got an MVP. Well, Rich Gannon, I think? Rich Gannon's got an MVP. There's kickers that have MVPs if we go way back in NFL history. Number 1. How many years was Cam? It's kind of 2 reasons. How many years was Cam Newton at his peak? I'd argue 1. Maybe a year and a half if you think about the end of the 2014 season. Like end of 2014 all through 2015 to like the NFC Championship game of that season. And then once the Super Bowl loss to Denver hit, he was really never the same guy. He had a rough 2016, good 2017, and a pretty good 2018 until he got injured. And then he got hurt in 2019, wasn't all that great in 2020, and was terrible in 2021. To me, to be a Hall of Famer, you have to have sustained, not really good, because Cam had really good years, sustained greatness. Greatness for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Cam doesn't have that. And number 2, and I think this matters, this is kind of a little known stat about Cam Newton, never had back-to-back winning seasons in the NFL. Never. Now, he made the playoffs 3 straight times from 2013 to 15, but that middle year, 2014, the Panthers were 7-8-1. They won a terrible division, and their playoff game was against a Cardinals team on their third-string quarterback. Like, I don't do asterisks in sports, but that'd be a warranted asterisk. It would. But Cam's, as we saw, he worked out at Auburn's pro day a couple weeks ago. He wants back in the NFL. He's like, I'm so much better. He used the word randoms. I'm so much better than these randoms, guys that are in the NFL that aren't that, certainly do not have the track record or resume that Cam has, but are still in the league. And Cam was on a podcast the other day. I'm sorry, it was on his YouTube channel on Wednesday night. And he was talking about trying to dispel the false narrative that he wouldn't be comfortable in a backup role. He said, quote, "This is how I feel. There ain't 32 guys that's better than me. But I also know that I could be a backup, and I'm willing to be a backup. There's a narrative out there that says, Cam does not want to be a backup. I never said I didn't want to be a backup. So I'm going to take this time to explain who and what situation I would want to be a backup to and for." And that's where Cam is. That's what he lacks. Self-awareness. That's what he's always lacked. That's what most of the great, forget quarterbacks, athletes have, is really good self-awareness. They know how something sounds when they say it. They know what to say, what not to say. Forget the media. In the locker room, they have a good pulse and everything. Cam doesn't. He starts out great. Yeah, I think I'm better than 32 guys. I don't think there's 32 guys. Obviously, there's 32 teams. I do not think there's 32 quarterbacks better than me. I disagree, but I don't have an issue with Cam saying that. He has confidence in himself. He should. That's great. And then he says, "I'm fine with being a backup. I'm open to it." Okay, good again. I have no issue with that. But then he can't help himself. Here's if I'm a backup, I'm fine to be a backup, but this is who I want to be a backup for. And then he goes on to list, "I'd like to be a backup to Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Justin Fields, Deshaun Watson, Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Hurts, Malik Willis," who's not even a starter right now, "Sam Howell, and Aaron Rodgers." And then it says he'd also added there's 3 quarterbacks of the draft he'd be willing to tutor: CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson. Okay. I hate to tell you, Cam, that's not your decision. It's if you really are fine with being the backup, then you'll be cool with whoever calls you. Now, if it's multiple teams, yeah, you pick where you want to go. That's the beauty of being a free agent. You choose where you want to go. But why do you think there hasn't been a market on Cam for a year and a half? It's this. Cam's absolutely, because we talk about, is somebody good enough to be in the NFL? Are they one of the 32 best? You don't have to be the 32 best. You need to be one of the 64 best. If you're a top 64 quarterback on planet Earth, you're good enough to be in the NFL. There are 32 teams. Every team has a minimum 1 backup. Most have 2, but the third string usually doesn't dress, depending on the situation. There are not 64 quarterbacks better than Cam Newton. I think we all agree on that. Even Cam at his lowest, which I think was a couple of years ago, the last time we saw him in the NFL, I still think he's better than a lot of backups in the NFL. But other backups don't give you this. The lack of self-awareness. That's what Cam's always missed. Look, I'm pulling for him. Cam's a big personality. He's exciting to watch. Certainly at his peak, he had Superman, he had the dance and everything. Remember in 2015, he had the dab. It was fun. But that ship sailed. Cam's not that guy again. Again, last time he played in the NFL was November of 2021. Why do you think it's been a year and a half and there's barely been any traction? I mean, I haven't heard anybody even say, this team brought Cam Newton in for a workout. Let me know if I'm wrong. I don't remember that headline. There's a reason for that. I think it's safe to say his NFL career is coming to a close. It was a tremendous career, for the record. Don't think it's a Hall of Fame career, but it was a very, very, very productive career. He won an MVP for crying out loud. Led a team to the Super Bowl. Got to the playoffs numerous times. I think 4 times got the Panthers to the playoffs. Good on you. But no, the teams aren't going to sign him for this reason alone. frankly, can't really say I blame him. I don't know. It'll be fascinating to see. I'd say the draft. Ryan Flowers, and I need to get Ryan on the show soon because he has been working his tail off at the Grid with his film study on these prospects. He's mostly focused on the quarterbacks, but he's also done it on other players. He did a short video the other day about Joey Porter, the corner from Penn State. He was talking about Bijan Robinson, who's the incredibly talented running back from Texas. Like Ryan, shout out to Ryan. He's doing, if you guys haven't checked out his content, you can check it out in the Grid or on Clutch Sports Talk. He's doing unbelievable breaking down the prospects of the draft. And like I said, it's Thursday. We hope to, at the Grid in 3 weeks from today, do a draft show, which would be very fun. Reacting to the first round of the 2023 draft, which, again, as is the case with any draft, we're looking at the quarterbacks. Last year was kind of the outlier. The only ones we really paid any attention to was Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis. I liked Malik Willis more than Pickett. Thus far, I've been dead wrong about that one. Malik had some, horrible games. Guy was barely breaking 50 yards passing. And Kenny Pickett, while his stats are by no means very impressive, Kenny had some good wins last year. He played well in that. He had a game-winning drive against the Ravens, game-winning drive against the Raiders. Like, he's good. John Rivera, this is one of your best comments ever, John. He says, I want the Jets to draft your guy from Tennessee, the quarterback, in the second round. Hendon Hooker, John, would be perfect. So if the Aaron Rodgers trade goes through, look, again, I don't think it's going to work near to the effect that most Jets fans do. However, if you go that route, Aaron Rodgers is 39 years old. He has, I think, max 2 months left. Or 2 years left. Got Hendon Hooker with a ton of experience in college. Now, I think Hendon Hooker could start day one. I don't think he will because of the injury. He tore his ACL last year. But you get to sort of groom him behind Aaron Rodgers for the next 2 years, and then he's your guy. Now, John, and this is going to sound bad, I hope Hendon Hooker doesn't get drafted by the Jets because as I make the joke, I didn't have a show when Sam Darnold was drafted by the Jets in 2018. I did when Zach Wilson was drafted in 2021. I said the New York Jets is where young quarterback dreams go to die. I hate to say that, but it's been the case. Now Chad Pennington was productive, but his issue is injuries. Geno Smith didn't work out. Geno Smith, obviously, who's crushed it in Seattle, never came anywhere near that with the Jets. Sam Darnold didn't work at all. Zach Wilson was 15 times worse than Sam Darnold. So for Hendon's sake, I don't want him to go to the Jets, but John, I absolutely see. Trust me, I watched this guy for 2 years. I totally see why you want him. And you should. The Jets should. Absolutely consider that in the second round. And even if it's not Hooker, I think the Jets will draft a quarterback. Not in the first round, but in round 2, 3. Because this is just like Tampa Bay with Tom Brady. He's going to be there. If Aaron is there 3 years, I'll be surprised. I think it's more like 2, and then he retires. Because Aaron Rodgers has been vocal about the fact he's not going to play as long as Tom Brady. He just, I question where his commitment level to football is now. So it's not going to last to 45 years old. I don't think that's like breaking news or anything. All right, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by again. Earlier show today. We're going to have an earlier show tomorrow. Again, scheduling conflicts. Tomorrow is Good Friday. So, like I said, as I've said many times, I am a Christian. I do observe Good Friday. And so stuff to be a part of tomorrow night. So I'll do a show. I haven't decided on a time yet. It'll either be 3 or 4 Eastern, most likely. So I'll put that on social media, and I'll let you guys know ahead of time when the show will be, but it'll be an earlier show tomorrow. So catch Carving Up Live tomorrow afternoon. I can't give you a time. I'll do that on social media. Just check on Instagram and Twitter, and I will let you guys know in advance. But be sure to like, share, comment, and take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button. Helps the channel grow exponentially. And be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network on YouTube, as well as wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, and wherever you get your podcasts. It's where you can listen to my show, check out my content on the Grid. as well. Who else do we have? I don't think we had anybody in the grid in the oh no, Parnell was in the comments. Check out his show, the Commander's Demand podcast. New episodes should be coming pretty soon to anywhere you listen to your podcast on Saturday. Be on the lookout for that. We've got Patrick Brown, who's got the Forum podcast, which is a Lakers show. Definitely your one-stop shop for the Lakers, considering we're late in the NBA season going into the postseason. And he's got the Chaotic Sports podcast, which is more of a general sports show. Barry Grant Jr., the All Even podcast. The aforementioned Ryan Flowers, who I mentioned, who's doing a phenomenal job covering these draft prospects. Definitely going to need to get him on the show sometime the next week or so. Clutch Sports Talk on the grid and wherever you list your podcast. Alfred Parsar Jr. of the Metropolitan Report, as well as a new episode just came out recently, the Rocket Fuel Jets podcast, in which he talked about the Aaron Rodgers situation and his frustration with the Green Bay Packers. He really, really lays it out very well. Please check out his newest show and the Cowboys Camp Fan podcast. They're as fun as it gets. So check out their show on the grid. So unbelievable creators at the network. And check out Jamel as well. Jamel Crothers, who I've had on Carving It Up Live, had him on a few weeks back for my March Madness special. He writes a lot of stuff for the network and has been unbelievable for us. So check out his articles on the Grid website as well. Have a great evening, everybody. I'll see y'all tomorrow afternoon. Again, I'll keep you posted. 3 or 4 Eastern, one of the two, noon Pacific, 1 Pacific. We'll see. I'll let you know on Twitter and on Instagram. But have a great evening, everybody. Please continue to stay safe. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. Please call your local state senator and your local state officials to get some change for gun violence, with the terrible things that's going on in this country. And God bless all the students that did all these walkouts nationwide. God bless y'all. We need change. We need it now. Have a great evening, everybody. God bless you all. Peace out. It's going to be exciting. Exciting finish. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.